Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Perth County Council meeting for Thursday, June 5th. I'm Warden Doug Kellum, and officially call this meeting to order. Ask the clerk to note the starting time is 9:01 a.m. This time, I'd like everyone to bow their heads for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We acknowledge that Perth County is situated on traditional land of the Anishinaabe, who have a long-standing relationship with the land and water throughout the region. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people who call this territory home. As a county, we have a responsibility for reconciliation and continued stewardship of the land on which we live and work. Does anyone have any peculiar interest to declare at this time? Seeing none, so does rise throughout the meeting, please disclose it then. Moving on to the confirmation of the agenda, we do have one addition to the agenda, which is item 14.1 in closed session. A matter pertaining to litigation, negotiations, the CAO. Are there any other additions for the agenda? Seeing none, the motion reads that the June 5th agenda be approved as amended. Moved by Councilor Wilhelm, second by Councilor McDermott. All those in favor? And that is carried. In regards to the consent agenda, there are 18 items on the agenda. Does anyone wish to pull, extract, discuss further? Eisenberg?
Good morning, Warden Kellum. Yes, I would like to pull item 6.15, which is a resolution from the town of Orangeville related to Bill 5.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you so much. Councilor McKenzie just whispered to me that it passed yesterday, but I think it remains incumbent on us to at least consider the possibility that there were elements of Bill 5 that grossly undermine planning in communities, as well as undermine environmental protections that are warranted in the case of new development. I find myself continuing to be very concerned about that particular bill and its provisions. I know there have been a flurry of bills that have hit the Legislative Assembly since its recall, and it's pretty hard to keep up with the implications of those. But this one clearly has some impacts on planning, and I've heard some suggest that Bill 5 actually undermines planning in the province of Ontario. Why would we bother planning anymore, given some of the provisions of this bill? So while it has passed, perhaps if we were to send a letter of support to the town of Orangeville, framing it as we too are concerned about the impacts of this legislation. And that's so moved.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So moved by Councilor Eisenberg. Would anyone like to second that? Councilor McDermott? Questions or comments? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor.
No, at some point in time, would staff be able to give maybe just a brief update on how that's going to change things, and possibly maybe Bill 17 too, if in the future they would be. I forgot my book this morning, so I didn't know if we're going to talk about that later on or not.
So through the warning being presented today under 8.2.2, here multi-plan water date will be presenting on those bill changes and providing an update of where we're at with the free bills. So it will be coming up later on in today's meeting.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so duly moved in second. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Mayor Eisenberg. Okay, so we have a motion that council receives the consent agenda items 6.1 to 6.18, removing 6.15, and approves the May 15th council 2025 council minutes. Moved by Councilor Smith, second by Councilor Rohr. All those in favor? And that is carried. We have no public meetings, hearings, or delegations. We'll move on right into staff reports, starting off 8.11, CAO. health and safety policy updates. I believe Crystal is coming up. Morning, Crystal.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, Helen and members of County Council. The report before you outlines updates made to 4 health and safety policies. The revisions outlined in this report are designed to bring us in line with current legislation, improve transparency, and support our continued effectiveness of our health and safety program. These changes are part of our broader effort to stay ahead of potential risks, promote consistent processes, and strengthen a culture where safety is prioritized by all. We aim to make health and safety a living part of our workplace culture, and these policy changes are housekeeping in nature with no financial implications. I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Questions or first comments for Crystal? Seeing none, I have a motion reads as follows: that council receives the health and safety policy update report, and the council approves the health and safety policy updates report. Moved by Councilor Wilhelm, second by Councilor Eggens. Questions or comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. On to 8.2.1 under planning services. And Jeff Van. Yes. Morning, Jeff, and welcome.
Thank you. The property is located on the north side of Mill Street West, between the settlement boundary and William Street. It's known as 44 Mill Street. Application is intended to extend the existing subdivision approval for a period of 2 years and to make minor revisions to the approved draft plan of subdivision to modify the single detached and semi-detached building lots. Next slide, please. Draft plan of subdivision includes 9 single detached lots, 10 semis, and 7 lots which will either be a single or a semi-detached dwelling, and 7 multi-unit residential blocks and open space blocks. The lands were subject to the draft plan of subdivision approved on May 10th of 1993 by the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Lapse date of June 15th of 2022 was added to the conditions of the draft approval, and that lapse date was extended for another 3 years by council on April 7th of 2022. Approval to sever the industrial portion of 54 Mill Street was granted in 2003. Subdivision has not been registered and an extension is needed to allow the developer to make changes to the plan that allows for greater flexibility in determining the residential lot sizes that meet the needs of the residents in Milverton. There is capacity within the existing infrastructure to service the plan of subdivision, and the proposed development continues to provide a housing option that meets those needs in the area. Next slide, please. The proposed minor changes involve the combining of lots into blocks to allow for greater flexibility to determine future lot sizes. The applicant has noted the change of lots and blocks will allow for potential reductions in lot widths for the single and semi-detached dwellings. The developer will still be required to meet their existing zoning regulations and receive approval for part lot control applications in order to develop the blocks with residential buildings in the future. Subject lands are appropriately zoned for the proposed mixed uses and range of residential densities in the draft approved plan of subdivision. The proposed changes result in a need to modify 3 conditions of the previously approved draft plan of subdivision. The rest of the draft plan conditions remain in effect and also will be required to be fulfilled before they can register the plan of subdivision. Based on the original draft plan approval and the previous request for a lapse date extension, if the applicant proposes a future extension to the draft plan of subdivision before June 15th of 2027, with no progress being made, it's likely that planning staff would not be able to support the request. At the May 21st, 2025 Perth East Council meeting, Council decided to recommend to Perth County Council that the application to extend the draft approval be approved, subject to the original conditions of the draft approval and with the revised conditions included in the staff report. The draft plan of subdivision, subject to the updated conditions, is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms with the County of Perth annual official plans. And the subject lands have either been previously designated and zoned for the appropriate development of the draft plan, and staff are supportive of the proposed changes and approved draft plan of subdivision. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report, Jeff. Questions or first comments for Jeff regarding this subject? Seeing none, I will lengthy resolution that reads as follows. The council receives the application for the planned subdivision extension 31T 92001 Reed's Heritage Homes Report. The council approves the application for extension to planned subdivision 31T 92001 for lands described as Part Lot 416, Plan 363, RP 44R 6085, Parts 2 and 3, Milverton Ward, in the Township of Perth East, subject to the original conditions of the subdivision approval for provisions to the following conditions. This approval applied to the draft plan 31261-22 prepared by Van Harten Surveying Inc., dated April 9th, 2025, which shows a total of 4 residential blocks, 1 block for multi-unit residential, 2 turning circle blocks, 2 blocks for 0.3 meter reserves, and 1 storm water management block. Hereafter referred to as draft plan as attached as Schedule A. That the subdivision agreement between the municipality and the owner shall provide that a warning be affixed to each and every offer of purchase and sale for blocks 3 and 4. Such warning shall advise of the presence of a nearby agricultural livestock operation, and that such operation may from time to time create conditions under which normal enjoyment of residential property may be impaired. Note to the draft approval, a draft plan approval for this development is for a period of 2 years and shall lapse on June 15th, 2027. The owner shall apply for any extension at least 90 days prior to the lapsing date. There is no authority to reactivate after this lapsing date if the owner's responsibility to obtain a council resolution for the extension of draft. Moved by Councilor Reagan, second by Councilor Smith. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to 8.2.2, Spring 25, provincial legislation changes. Morning, welcome, Maureen.
Good morning, Council. This morning, I'm here to present to you 3 bills that have been tabled at the provincial level. As mentioned by Councilor McDermott, it is Bill 5 and Bill 17, and then I'm also providing you an update on Bill 21. All 3 of these bills have been tabled with the stated goal of removing unnecessary barriers to create new jobs, build new homes, and protect farmland from development. Each bill proposes a suite of changes to multiple statutes within the province, and it ranges from overarching framework setting to direct actions on certain projects within that legislation itself. It provides this report and this presentation. I'm hoping to provide a summary of what those are. And then before you, we also have some comments that we're hoping to submit to the province regarding some of our concerns with the changes being proposed. So this slide just provides a brief summary of the bills we're speaking of today. There's Bill 5, Bill 17, Bill 21. Bill 5 was released on April 17th. I will note that the commenting period has closed. It closed on May 17th for Bill 5. It has currently, at the time of report, it had only received first reading. It's now received third reading and is before the legislature for royal assent. And we also have Bill 17, which was released on May 12th. You'll see before you in the report that the commenting period is to close on June 12th and subsequently on June 24th for the regulations. Now, at the time of the report writing, it had only received first reading. It has now received third reading as well. And finally, there's Bill 21, which is a Protect Our Food Act. It is a private member's bill, so while it doesn't or is unlikely to proceed in legislature, it does bring up some important points of how we balance development and also protect our agricultural system while we grow as a province. So first, a summary on Bill 5.
So you'll see on the slide before you, and then it's provided in more details within your report. But in short, the commenting period has closed, but we're still providing this summary for you just so you're aware of what the implications are and what it's proposing. The first key part of Bill 5 is the proposal to create these special economic zones. They would be for projects or classes or for trusted proponents of the province to exempt these projects and classes of projects and proponents from compliance with provincial and municipal law. The proposed size for these areas is not released, but it does state that it could be anything from a specific parcel of land to a large geographic area. There's also proposed exemptions from archaeological requirements where the Lieutenant Governor proposes that the project is a provincial priority. And then there's also the permissions for exemptions to environmental permitting processes. So this either under the Environmental Bill of Rights or through the Environmental Assessments Act. The difference with this legislation is that it actually directly writes these projects into the act or the policy itself, rather than creating this general special economic zone, which could apply to a broad range of projects. The Ontario Place project, the Chatham-Kent landfill, and then also a mining project in Northern Ontario are directly written into the legislation as being exempt from these policies and acts. There's also the proposed reduction for habitat protection and the removal of restrictions on harassment of endangered species. There is the adoption of a registration first approach for habitat destruction rather than a permitting process. So as long as the activities are registered online and followed through by a registered professional, then that construction can occur. There's also the further proposal of protection removal from aquatic species and migratory birds. This would be through the new Species Conservation Act. So they're looking to repeal the existing Endangered Species Act, replace it with the Species Conservation Act, and they would remove aquatic species and migratory bird protections as it's deemed that these are already protected under the Federal Species at Risk Act. Now, as for some of staff's concerns, Bill 5 creates precedent-setting provincial powers for the province in terms of range and scale of the potential authorities and exemptions that the province could provide or is available to the province simply by enacting a regulation. These powers significantly impact the goal and effectiveness of the current planning system and the certainty and transparency and the protections that the current system provides. By proposing these exemptions, there would be a removal of that transparency and certainty and those protections. There's also a new introduction of 3 new pathways to development. So all of which would remove or entirely remove the role of local councils and local municipal staff. It also removes consultation rights as well as appeal rights for the public. Those 3 new pathways that I mentioned are through that new designation of that economic zone, as well as directly including projects in legislation itself or allowing for ministry leaders to provide exemptions on a site-by-site basis. There's also the concern that the new development pathways and the exemptions provided within, they're going to affect our local requirements that derive our authority from other acts within the province. So an example being, the Drainage Act, which supports our local interests of agricultural drains. There could be some project that's exempt from compliance with that, which would impact our ability to follow through with these other acts and these other works that are undertaken under different acts that aren't the Special Economic Zone or the Planning Act or the Municipal Act. And then finally, just to reiterate, so local decision-making will be entirely removed by Bill 5 for provincial priority projects. Now, provincial priority projects to date have just been deemed to be the mining projects as well as Ontario Place and the landfill, but there hasn't been the regulations or the legislation implementing guidelines released yet. So staff is unaware of what the extent of these provincial priority projects are, but it's just a concern that these decisions will prevent Perth County Council and staff from considering the local considering the local context when these projects are brought before us in Perth County. Next, we have Bill 17. The commenting period deadline for this is June 12th. We are hoping to, upon your approval of the comments and concerns, looking to submit to the ERO, the Environmental Registry of Ontario, our comments by the end of today, so that we can get those before the province for consideration. But Bill 17 looks to make changes to the Development Charges Act through exempting long-term care homes from development charges, deferring DC payments, as well as freezing DCs in place at the time of application, and then also exempting DCs from accruing interest. There's also the prevention for municipalities to pass bylaws that respect building standards. So there would be an amendment to both the building code and then clarification within the Planning Act and the Municipal Act that the building code is the only regulations that are to regulate buildings. This looks to make building standards, green building standards, as well as urban design guidelines and compatibility measures within zoning bylaws to be entirely obsolete. Bill 17 also looks to restrict the type and amount of studies and reports that can be requested as part of a complete application. So to date, they're looking to remove sun and shadow studies, wind studies, urban design briefs, and lighting studies. But under the ERO website, they are looking or considering other studies that could be removed or removed as being required under a complete application. And then finally, the Bill 17 is also looking to permit as of right variations to zoning bylaw regulations and requirements. And this will be without a zoning bylaw amendment. So currently they're proposing an as of right variance of 10%. So let's say the front yard setback within your zoning bylaws is 5 meters. A proponent or a developer or a landowner could then develop to 4.5 meters. So they would get an extra half a meter to develop closer to the front yard. And that is looking to reduce just the amount of minor variance applications you receive. And you'll see within the report I provided you, as well as on the slide, staff do agree that there's instances where minor variances are somewhat of a hassle, where there could be a site plan approved and then it goes to building permit stage, and there's 0.1 of a meter difference between what is on the plan versus what's been built, and then that requires a minor variance in another application, which we do understand as a hindrance. However, we do believe that there is still need to provide a review of these applications to ensure that it's not overreaching or impacting adjacent properties. So you'll see kind of halfway down the slide, for the compatibility and to ensure the compatibility still remains, we actually are requesting or proposing to the province that there be a staff delegated authority rights as an alternative. So staff can then review the application and see whether it needs to pursue a minor variance or not. If it is within that 10%, then maybe it just moves on and it's not required. But if it's greater than 10%, then a minor variance application would be needed. As for DC exemptions, there is concern from staff that there will be an overall loss of DC revenue for municipalities. There will also be a potential administrative burden for Perth County staff, as the DC exemptions and reduction in freezes will need to create other processes on how to manage those new requests and additional DC processes. There's also concern from planning staff, that the removal of certain studies requirements from Planning Act applications actually reduces and removes our ability to meet our responsibilities under the Planning Act, as we have to or are required to have regard for certain provincial interests, one of them relating to SEPTED principles. And we believe that there could be concerns with our ability to ensure that applications are meeting these principles without those required studies. There's also the concern that the removal of peer review of studies, as well as the removal of requests for a review of studies that are stamped by registered professionals. It'll remove our ability to, again, meet those responsibilities under the Planning Act. And then further, just some general comments regarding the frequency in which these bills have been released and the short commenting periods. We don't believe they're adequate for staff to provide a thorough review of these policies, as well as, understand and comment on these extensive policy changes that are happening. It's quite a short period of time just to be able to ensure that we're getting it in front of you and making you aware. But in instances where, it's only 30 days, we are just not able to meet those timelines. And then further, there's concerns with the overall approach of changing legislative guidance from the acts themselves to regulations. So much of the information that's provided before you today is a result of the information provided to date, with the bulk of the implementing details being proposed through regulations. Now, it's challenging to understand what the full impact is going to be of these acts without those details being released before the act's commenting period is up, as well as before the act receives royal assent. There is concerns that the implementation of details through regulations also removes clarity and consultation rights, as regulations don't need to go through the legislature. So they don't need to be commented on to be approved, and changes can be made at any time to these regulations. So while whatever regulations come out of these acts, they could be changed in a couple months' time, and the impacts we wouldn't be aware of. And then further, just regarding the release of bills and regulations, there's been 8 at least bills released by the province alone, and to significantly change planning policy and development framework. So we would just ask that the province consider that when releasing policies, and maybe consider longer comment periods to allow for us to adequately understand what the impacts are. And finally, there's Bill 21. I mentioned this, that it isn't, it is a private member's bill. So while it may not proceed, it just brings attention to the challenges that we face in Perth County when having to balance the growth that we're seeing with the protection of our agricultural food system. So this bill proposes the creation of a food belt, and then further proposes the restriction of rezoning agricultural lands. Now, in order for this to pass, it would have to be approved by the province, which is unlikely, but just bringing it to your attention just so you're aware. And there's also a similar related letter on your consent agenda that you saw this morning. So again, just some general concerns with the frequency of release and the limited commenting periods. And that pretty much summarizes the bills before you that have come out the past couple of months. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for the report, very thorough and informative. Colleagues, questions or comments? Councilor McDermott?
To the Lord. A couple, the Chatham-Kent landfill, is that for Chatham-Kent or is that for somebody else?
Through the warden, the Chatham-Kent landfill is for the York 1 landfill. It is for the landfill in Chatham-Kent. It is specifically exempting that project from requiring or needing to obtain provincial permits. It also exempts them from needing to comply with Environmental Bill of Rights and the Environmental Assessments Act. So that is just project specific for them, but it does bring attention to the willingness of the province to put specific projects into their policies. So if another project of provincial priority wanted to be exempt from these acts, there's a willingness from the province to do that for, future type projects that come into Perth County.
No, I just meant though that like that landfill, is that going to be for the residents of Chatham-Kent, or is that a landfill that they're going to take stuff from all over Ontario? If you know.
Through the warden, I don't have the details on that.
Oh, okay, because usually you would think something like that, they don't want to do landfill, so you're thinking that's probably Toronto needs it, so they're gonna, move their garbage out and dump it someplace else, but, and then on the other question, if all these timelines are so short and all that kind of stuff, I would assume that it would be hard for you to do, so I would assume that your staff level would have to increase for you to be able to meet these timelines.
Through the warden, there is a challenge of having to balance our existing requirements to meet statutory review periods as well as undertake policy review while having to ensure that we're aligning with these regularly changing policies.
And the third thing that you had about regulations, that once you do a regulation, you can change that tomorrow. And I'm not sure how you would keep up on those unless, I believe even the regulation has to be in some kind of provincial gazette or something, would it not?
Through the warden, it would be placed in a regulation under the actual act itself. I believe it would be posted through some type of publication. However, it wouldn't be released for consultation. It would just be making people aware that this change has been made.
Eisenberg?
Thank you. I think, there's a range of impacts which staff has elegantly portrayed for us. Thank you. That should be very concerning to us. Among those, the impacts on development charges, which seem to continue to be under a cloud of change and movement. Both the province and the feds have expressed interest in development charges lately. I find myself very troubled by this particular pair, I guess, of bills, and we're sort of at a stage, if I'm following what you said, with third reading having been achieved, that there's not a lot of opportunity for us to offer comment. On Bill 5, it seems the commenting period has come and gone. So I do find myself wondering whether what we're doing now is to express opposition to some of these points that you've raised as a council, that we disagree with the provincial direction, and do that by resolution, as did Orangeville on various aspects. Perhaps what we need is an Orangeville plus message. We've agreed to endorse the Orangeville message, but perhaps we can send all of these comments that have been raised by you as additional fodder in the framework of our concern. I guess the real question I have for you, Ms. Davidson, is what is the impact of these two bills on the pending official plan approval? Because of course we have a draft official plan before the province, and I think this kind of throws a monkey wrench into some of that. So I'm curious to get a sense of what you anticipate lies ahead with regards to that, and the work that will fall from a new official plan on zoning bylaws.
Through the warden, we have been in consultation with the province since we submitted the OP 2024 back in October. They do not anticipate there to be impacts from these bills on the official plan approval. We are anticipated to receive that approval shortly. Sooner than later is what I was advised. But I don't anticipate these to necessarily have impacts to the official plan. I guess there could be the notion of, in removing the local planning process or system from certain types of projects, that would impact the type of land uses we are seeing in the county, where it may not align with what the official plan says, but that would just mean we would need to pivot and ensure that protections are still provided. It would just maybe be on a as site-by-site basis, and if it's not the project or the property specific that can have planning input or council's input on it, maybe we can still ensure that the surrounding areas are protected through the official plan.
But that also suggests, and I'm going to borrow from Councillor McDermott's comments, there are implications there with regards to workload and so forth for the county planning staff. So I know it's really premature to anticipate what that looks like because we don't fully understand the scope of this, but sure sounds to me like they're trying to thin out how municipalities get paid for growth. And they're trying to change, put their finger on the scale to change what can be built where when they feel it's appropriate, and they could well increase staff workload and monkey around the official plan. To me, those things don't seem like a good deal, and that's why I believe this council should forward the concerns in a letter as part of our action from this report. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Else? See none, so moving forward, you'll take our colleagues' comments and want to create something?
Through in response to your question, I'm hoping to submit the comments that are part of the report, as well as include the comments that have been brought up at this table.
If you are comfortable?
If I might, if I followed what you said, for Bill 17, there's still opportunity to provide comments. But for Bill 5, that window closed, I believe, through the registry at least, right?
Through the warden, the Bill 5 registration has closed. As of this morning at 9 a.m., there was still only a third reading on Bill 17. But I would recommend that it be, comments be submitted imminently.
Okay, so if I might, Warden Kellum, then I think that our approach should be to direct staff to submit the comments from Bill 17 through the open process that exists now, which I think is the right thing. But I think we should probably accumulate our comments on Bill 5 and send them in, even though the legislation has been passed, to express our council's displeasure with that.
And a timeline for that?
Well, I think a letter can be composed that perhaps augments, I'll turn to Clerk Sager here, perhaps augments the letter of support that we will send for the Orangeville message, to sort of add our own commentary to that, to more fulsomely consider this council's position.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So through the warden, if we kind of just go through the full resolution here, that council receives the spring 2025 provincial legislation changes report. Then council directs planning staff to submit comments for Bill 17 to the Environmental Registry of Ontario ERO. And then to add in Councillor Kasenberg's at this point, the council sent a letter to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and to the Honourable Rob Flack, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, indicating concerns with Bill 5. So it's listed specifically. Then the council directs planning staff to forward the spring 2025 provincial legislation changes report to the lower tier municipalities for information. I think then additionally, we would continue to do as was already passed, to send a letter to the town of Orangeville separately as well, indicating the support and concerns of council. So I believe that captures the intent of lawyer's report as well as Councillor Kasenberg's comments.
Thank you. So you would move that? Sure. Comments, Councillor McKenzie?
Yeah, I think it would only be fitting that we copy Matt Ray so that he's also aware of the concerns.
Usual suspects. Right?
Yeah.
Usual suspects. That's how we refer to it in North Perth, the usual suspects.
Right, absolutely. So moved by Councillor Kasenberg,
I'll second.
second by Councillor McKenzie. Any other comments? All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. We're going to 8.3 on our agenda, corporate services, joint accessibility plan, annual stats. And Rachel? And Jane? Perfect. Morning.
And to Perth County Council, good morning. As Warden Kellum noted, we're here today to present the joint accessibility update. This should be fairly familiar to you, as we did just complete our lower tier roadshow earlier this week. We want to make sure that we do this update at the county level as well, just to make sure that our public's informed, that our staff receives the appreciation for the work that they've done, and that you are informed at the county level as well.
Okay, so this roadmap should look familiar. We've got our legislation that we're starting with today. Then we'll be talking about a snapshot of the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and what they've completed in 2024. Then we'll be moving into the accomplishments at the county level for 2024 and the goals for 2025 and beyond. And then finally, we'll have some time for questions at the end if you've ruminated on something from the lower tiers and you'd like to bring that forward, or if there's something that pops into your head today, please feel free to ask that at the end. Okay, familiar slide. Legislation. When we talk about accessibility, we're talking about the AODA and our Province of Ontario guiding legislation. Under the ISR standards, we're required to review and update our accessibility plan once every 5 years. Clerk Sager and I completed that update, that sort of larger overhaul in 2023. That plan runs to 2027. Under the subsection of the legislation, we're required to provide an annual update regarding all of our initiatives and things that have been pushed forward with regard to the plan. And so that's why we're here today, and you see us year over year completing a very similar report. Okay, Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. So this slide, and Jamie O'Leary is going to give you a quick snapshot of what they were up to in 2024. Just a reminder, under the AODA, the Accessibility Advisory Committee is a mandated committee. There are members that sit on that committee from all of your lower tiers, providing their lived perspectives and feedback on different projects throughout the county and through the lower tiers. And Jamie will provide a bit of a picture of what they worked on in 2024. Rachel?
Through you, Warden. Again, this will probably be a bit familiar to you guys, but in 2024, the JAC did a lot of really good work. Every year we do promotion for National Accessibility Week. It was actually this year, it was last week. So you might have seen some communication about that. That's something that we look at every year. There's a toolkit that goes out and we circulate that. And then each year we complete site plan reviews with the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. And the way that works is we get a site plan review request from one of the lower tiers. We convene a subcommittee that's made up of 2 to 3 members from the committee, with at least one of those people on the subcommittee being from the lower tier that the site plan is for. And then kind of work together, review that site plan, submit a feedback report back to the lower tier. And that's what that looks like. So in 2024, we completed 12 of those. And then another important thing that happened in 2024 was the creation of a working group through the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee. So the working group was, excuse me, created with 2 intents. One was creating a tool to review the accessibility of PC Connect bus stops. So that tool was created and there was a brief review done on the rural route prior to its cancellation on March 31st. But that tool still exists in the event that anything is developed in the future. And then the second piece, which is kind of where we've headed into now at the tail end of 2024 and moving into 2025, with the working group looking into the feasibility of a stopgap initiative for the county. So we're still just in the research gathering phase for that, but I'm sure we'll hear more about that next year. And then lastly, we are mandated to have between 8 to 10 regular Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee meetings each year. So in 2024, we held 8 of those meetings, and lots of great work has been done, lots of great work still to come. And I'm sure that 2025 is going to be a good year for the committee.
Great, thanks, Jamie. Just a reminder, the Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, while it's held at the upper tier, they are a resource as well for all of your staff or any of the projects that you're working on at a lower tier. If you ever want to receive a perspective in terms of accessibility from that lived perspective, they're more than happy to provide their input. So feel free to reach out anytime. Okay, we're just going to cover the county level today. At your lower tiers, we did some specific slides for accomplishments for your staff at the lower tiers. Of course, lots of great work going on there as well, but today we're just going to cover the county. At the county level in 2024 for accessible work, lots of great things going on in terms of staff work. We had a full remediation of our website to a CAG 2.0 standard and completed our provincial reporting in time for that January 1st, 2025 deadline. We've since implemented a workflow, thanks to communications, Sarah Franklin behind me here, where any new information or web pages that are being published, we're checking all that content prior to publication to make sure that it is accessible before it's going up on the website. We also saw the majority of our new renovation, 1 Huron, 5 Huron, that link build happening. That physical space, a lot of that was completed in 2024. Including quite a few accessibility features being installed, like an elevator. We've got some different counter heights, power buttons, and a ramp actually in the link area over to that courthouse. Archives also made significant progress. Betty Jo has reported on this to you as well at the county level for their digitization project for local historic newspapers. just allowing for greater access in person and digitally. Anyone who needs a screen reader or to access with technology are now able to do so. And finally, we provided some training sessions to county and lower tier staff that focused on hosting accessible events and meetings. Okay, where are staff headed in 2025 and beyond? So aligning again with that joint accessibility plan, staff are looking to continue to work on actually moving us into the space at that new One Huron build. So as we move into that space, we want to make sure that the space is not only functional, but it is accessible for staff and the public as we're utilizing it and starting to open up that way. Planning staff are also updating applications both at the county level and lower tiers so that any of those digital forms that you're seeing online are going to be fully accessible. So they're working with your building departments and with planners to make sure that all of our applications and forms going out are accessible. And then finally, we're looking at offering some training in 2025. Jamie just completed one in May, actually, about accessible documents, creating, remediating. And we'll continue to offer relevant accessibility topics moving through 2025 and beyond. Okay, with that, thank you for your patience today, your engagement. If you have any questions that were lingering from your lower tier meetings, or if you have any questions today, we are happy to answer them. Yeah.
Thank you for the report. Rachel and Jamie, colleagues, any questions or comments for them? Seeing none, I have a resolution that reads.
Before we just take the vote, can you just stop the screen share so we can see it?
Good call. Thank you. Yes, the council receives the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2024 report, and the council approves the Joint Accessibility Plan Annual Status Update 2024. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Moving on, 8.3.2, Agricultural Working Group Opposition Review. And I think Tyler's taking this. Okay.
So through the warden before council today is the report on the agricultural working group composition review. So at the February 20th, 2025 regular council meeting, staff were directed to undertake a comparative review of surrounding municipalities and their agricultural committees. Listed in my report is the resolution. It was essentially just to refer the request from District 9. If you guys remember, we did have a delegation from the Perth Grain Farmers of Ontario District Committee to staff to review the composition of the Ag Working Group. So we undertook a review with that being said, just kind of where we're at with our working group and what that membership looks like. So it does comprise of the warden and council from each member municipality. And then in addition to that, one representative from each of the following accredited farm organizations. That is the Christian Farmers of Ontario, the Perth County District, the National Farmers Union, again, Perth County District, and then the Perth Federation of Agriculture. So we conducted a review of 4 neighboring upper tier municipalities, those being the County of Brant, Lambton, Norfolk, and Oxford. And then additionally, we did 6 municipalities that were contacted with responses received from 3 indicating that no equipment committee existed, and then a total of 7 that we had for comparative review. Just for council's information, when each farm business is registered, the farmer must choose to obtain a membership with one of the 3 accredited organizations in Ontario. Again, those 3 are the Ontario Federation of Agriculture, Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario, and the Nationalist Farmers Union. Should additional organizations, individuals wish to bring specific items to the attention of the working group or council, we have the ability through a delegation of requests. So whether it's at the council level or through the agricultural working group, if it's a specific topic on the agenda, we do have the ability for any commodity organization to come and have a delegation specifically on that item. Again, we also have elected officials that sit on there. So this allows, again, the interest of the community to be through communication to their respective counselor who might sit on that committee. So overall, the staff recommendation at this point is to keep the current composition of the agriculture working group as is, because we do believe it provides appropriate representation of the Perth County farming community, and we do have avenues for communication for all the additional commodity groups if we were looking at adding a commodity group like the greens, we would also probably have to look at adding every other single commodity. And we think that, again, there is equal representation and an opportunity for all of them with the current composition. So that is a highlight of my report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Thank you for the report, Tyler. Colleagues, questions or comments for Tyler? Councilor McDermott?
I understand not wanting to make the committee any bigger, but I would just make a suggestion that if we have a list of all those commodity organizations, that if we are going to have a meeting, we would just send them an email and with maybe our agenda, and that way there might be something specific to them and maybe not the rest. And then that way, if they wanted to send a letter or come to our meeting, then they would at least know that it is, because I understand that if you're the head of the OFA or whatever, and you have all these other groups, that maybe sometimes it might not get, information might not get to a group that it might be more important to. So it's a possibility that you can just have a list of them and just simply send them when we're having a meeting.
Through the word, absolutely. We can look at a notification of commodity groups and what that looks like, and sending out a notification for when the public agenda is posted. Again, the Ag Working Group does meet 4 times a year, so it's not an additional burden on staff as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor?
Through the word, just to clarify for public, going back to the compensation, like at one point I thought maybe it was the deputy mayors, and then I realized, no, I went on only when Jim passed away. So it is one person from this council from the lower tiers. And can you just name off the other 3 organizations and who they represent? Like who, like Julie Gainey, the County Federation of Agriculture.
Yeah, so who their representative is? So
Yeah, that's Julie Bain.
correct. So I might have to defer this over to Deputy Warden Trentowski for specifics on the individuals. But Perth Federation of Agriculture is Julie Dannon.
Yeah.
Christian Farmers of Ontario. John.
Van Dyke.
Thank you. And the National Farmers Union, I believe they're looking for a representative at this time.
Yeah, it was Andy Megan's, but he has since withdrawn his participation from the Ag Working Group, and myself, along with staff, have been asking the NFU executive director to provide us with a replacement. To date, that has not been successful. We've issued a further request here recently, and stressed very importantly that we need to have a representative from an NFU in attendance at our July meeting, which is the next scheduled meeting for the Ag Working Group. And depending on the outcome of that request, there may or may not be a report from council on that, or a report to council from the Ag Working Group on that vacancy situation. So a work in progress.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. And the only other thing I just want to highlight here is page 178. So this, delegation request, I guess, maybe because I'm fairly new to the group, I would have highlighted some delegation requests to come to the group regarding the tree bylaw, had I known that I thought I was their representative, but if we'll tie this in when we do the tree bylaw review, but I do think that's an important aspect that people get to be heard. So just wanted to point that out.
Okay, if there's some resolution that can go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Warden Kellum, just one comment, a general comment about the composition of the Ag Working Group itself. Right now, it's, as was stated earlier, it's members of council plus 3 members, OFA, NFU, Christian Farmers, as per the current bylaw that governs and oversees this working group. So it would have to be council's decision to change the composition. And I guess my only insight or comment in that regard is we're at 8 members who have a vote. Should the composition become larger, then in my experience so far, it no longer becomes a working group and it becomes more of an advisory committee. I know at York Region, they have upwards of 20, and it's an advisory committee. And in Perth County's case, where it's more than just advisory, as you'll find out in the later reports, it's an action group. So council will want to think about what they want. Do they want an action group? Do they want this working group to be active, like bringing forward actions or recommendations of actions to council, or do they just want it to be an advisory sounding board? So that's for council's decision or consideration, whether now or in the future. And my final comment, spots on this, the voting spot on this ag working group needs to be earned. It isn't necessarily just delegated out. It needs to be earned, and there needs to be some substance behind a request to be introduced into this ag working group. And what do I mean by earned? There needs to be an active interest in the parties that want to join, and there needs to be a demonstration, whether it's through making a delegation to the ag working group itself or to council as a whole. There needs to be some active participation and engagement from any commodity group that seeks to have a voting status on this ag working group. So those are my comments and my observations for council to consider whether now or in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor Higgins?
Contrary to or through you, Warden, this is an advisory group. They're not just an action group. They bring advice to council, and council has that final say. Doesn't mean that the group gets that final say. It's council. All you're bringing is recommendations to us. Your interpretation is different than mine, what an advisory group it actually does. Also, my other concern is, and I know you don't want this group getting any bigger, but how interactive is the federation with all the dairy boards, the pork boards and all that? Do they interact a whole lot? I know they have different people on their committee, but I'm not really sure that they interact. And going to Councillor McDermott's comments, I think that's a great idea that we reach out to these other commodities. They want to bring something forward, they can, because otherwise I don't know if they really have that opportunity to do that. It's too bad that the national farmers can't find someone to come to the committee. It makes it not the greatest when we don't have 3 representations from the different farming commodities, but I guess that's their choice. But anyway, those are my comments. This is an advisory committee, and it's council's decision what happens.
Thank you, Warden.
And through you, Warden, to further Councillor Eggett's comments, the Ag Working Group does not do anything on its own independently. We bring recommendations forward to council. Council does have the final say and the final direction. The Ag Working Group it's not an independent body of any sort. We do not do anything without council's say so whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? Seeing none, council receives the Agricultural Working Group Composition Review 2025 report for information. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Duncan. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. 8.3.3 Forestry Inspector's Report for April. Tyler?
Excellent. So just once through the warden before council is the April 2025 Forestry Inspector's Report. Prepared by Marvin Smith, the Perth County Forestry Inspector. Marvin's here today. I saw him come in. Thank you. In the month of April, Marvin completed 4 inspections in response to the submission of a notice of intent or NOI and 1 inspection in response to a complaint. Now, normally at this time, I would say if there's any questions, concerns, inquiries, I'd send them off to Marvin, and I don't want to put Marvin on the spot. But if there are any questions, concerns, or inquiries, Marvin is here. However, the report is from Farms Council.
Perfect. Thank you for the report. Colleagues, questions or comments? Seeing none, resolution that reads that council receives the April 2025 Forestry Inspector's report for information. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Orr. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Tyler. 8.3.4, mid-year activities report, Stratford Perth Archives, MSSC. She joined us.
Rachel should be online. It's
Good morning, Betty Jo.
Good morning, Warden. Thanks, everyone.
There's a bit of a pause.
Okay, sorry, I think I just took a moment for me to join the meeting. So good morning again, everyone. Thank you for your patience. The report from Stratford Perth Archives today is an activities update for Council's information and to seek approval for its submission to the MSSC meeting in 2 weeks. So I would like to highlight a few items from the report. 2 summer students began working with us on May the 5th, and with their support, we are able to offer drop-in access to the archives, reading room, and gallery on Saturdays until the end of August. Weekend access is available by appointment the rest of the year through permanent staff. Otherwise, staff and students are continuing with projects like digitizing local newspapers and public outreach efforts like the community-based displays at the St. Mary's Heritage Fair and Anne Hathaway Public School in Stratford that are noted in the report. And of course, our newspaper articles. There is a sample article written to celebrate Archives Awareness Week in April that I've attached to the report. And with that, I will thank you all for your time today, and through you, Warden Kellum, be happy to answer any questions or comments that you may have about the report.
Thank you, Betty Jo. Questions or comments for her? Councillor Orr.
Yeah, Betty Jo, just wondering, with the summer students on, coming on Saturdays, is there going to be a conflict with the museum and the parking?
So with Council's approval, we did negotiate an agreement with the museum a couple of years ago that addresses some of those potential concerns. We have good communication with museum staff, so they let us know when one of their larger events are happening on Saturdays. And so far, things are working out well. We're able to say, for example, they had an event on May 31st, I believe. The Kinsman Club came in and had quite a large event. So we were closed, so we were just able to say to them ahead of time, you know, use our parking as you will, however it would best serve your event. And now that we're getting into the summer Saturday openings, we're just good communication is key. And so far that is resulting in no problems, actually. Our students have been given instructions to use parking cones to mark off a few reserved spots if they think that there is going to be an issue for archives visitors. But otherwise, things seem to be going smoothly.
Thank you.
Anything else? Seeing none, a resolution that council receives the mid-year activities report from Stratford Perth Archives for MSSC, and that council approve the report for submission to the Municipal Shared Services meeting on June 19th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Kaisenberg, second by Councillor Agates. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Betty Jo.
Thank you.
Moving on, 8.3.5, POA Court Services Report.
freezing.
It's cold. Morning, welcome, Vicki.
Good morning, Warden Kellum and members of council. The report before you provides an update on activities at the Provincial Offences Court Services Office until the end of April this year. The report also shows statistics comparing the last 5 years to the current year for revenue, charges filed, pending caseload, and court appearances. Court services staff continue to collaborate with the Regional Senior Justice of the Peace for Blitz dates, resulting in 9 additional court dates obtained for 2025. An update for the Part 3 download on the February 20th, 2025 council meeting. Council approved the transfer of the Part 3 matters from the province to the municipality. The interim transfer agreement signed by both the Ministry of the Attorney General and Perth County staff took effect earlier this week, actually this past Monday. The distribution of revenue is calculated based on actual fines and the location of each offense. Fine revenue is just distributed between St. Mary's, Stratford, and Perth County
based on the location of the offense, and then distributed to the lower tiers based on weighted assessment. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks for the report, Vicky. Questions or comments for her at this time? Seeing none, resolution that council receives the POA Court Services Report for MSSC, an operational update report, and that council approves the report for submission of the Municipal Shared Services Committee meeting of June 19th, 2025. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. All those in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Vicky. 8.3.6, Corey, 2024 financial results and year-end reserve transfers.
Good morning, Kellen and council. The report for you is essentially our 2024 financial results. The finance staff has determined that we are showing a deficit of just approximately 1.2 million, with majority of that deficit representing municipal drains component of the total deficit. To note within the report, this is a good time for discussion related to public works and finance on shifting that municipal drain component from the operations to the capital program. And essentially is one of the reasons why we're recommending a transfer from one of the reserves to essentially finance that in 2024. Overall, the other item was essentially the late invoice received from the City of Stratford related to social service deficit for the county's portion. And again, to note is to be financed from a reserve. The last part is that the anticipated balance of the levy stabilization reserve to the end of 2025 is down to about $56,000. So the report is before you. If there's any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you for the report, Corey. Council, questions or comments from at this time on this one? Councillor Smith.
Thanks. Through you, Warden. Did we not get a refund? I know a number of public and perhaps private companies got refunds from WSIB because of their surplus. Did the county get a refund on that?
Yeah. Through the warden to Councillor Smith, we're a Schedule 2 employer. Schedule 1 employers are the ones that receive refunds. Schedule 1 employers pay a premium, an annual premium. Schedule 2 employers, they're self-funding of their WSIB costs. So as a Schedule 2 employer, we're not entitled to those type of refunds that the Schedule 1 employers receive with respect to their premiums that they are currently paying.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, a resolution that reads that council receives the 2024 financial results and year-end transfers report, and that council approves effective December 31st, 2024, following reserve transfers. First, $209,642 transfer from paramedic services, WSIB reserve. Second, $217,197 transfer from the levy stabilization reserve. And finally, $759,949 transfer from bridges and culverts capital reserve. Moved by Councillor Eggens, second by Deputy Warden Trentowski. All those in favor? And that is carried. Corey? On to paramedic services. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. Through you, Warden, this is our operational update for the Municipal Shared Service Committee to go in 2 weeks after our grand opening. So you have the report before you. I'll just highlight a couple of things. With respect to staffing, you'll see that we did hire 12 new paramedics, which we're pleased about. Across Ontario, staffing is still something that most paramedic services continue to struggle with because we just don't have the supply of paramedics coming out of colleges yet. So we continue to work on doing 2 recruits a year. Fleet replacements, we have a couple of vehicles that are coming one more vehicle, coming this year. And there's finally a new vendor that's hitting the market, and London, Ontario's trying that vendor right now. And so we're going to be really curious to see how that goes, because that means there's more competition in the market, which is good news. Equipment replacement, you're familiar with our Zoll purchases, and we will be rolling out those defibrillators later this quarter, not this quarter, later Q3. And excited to move that forward with the departure with Annette moving on to the Solicitor General office, working for them as the JP. We have now working with legal just to finalize our contract to make sure that our best interests are met through that agreement. So we're really close to signing off on that, and we'll continue with that project forward. I don't anticipate any issues there. We continue to work with the Huron and Perth Healthcare Alliance with our offload delay program. We are also implementing through First Watch, is one of our business analytic tools, which is provided with Medivy. We have a dashboard that we're implementing in their emergency department, so we're real pleased to see that, and we continue to see improvement. We're hoping to get offload delay funding again this year. And as we do, then we continue to expect that our offload delays, which were occurring there, will continue to be lessened. So you'll see that we are having a positive impact. I'm preparing a report to the ministry, which is going to be submitted by the end of this month, that shows how we performed during that period of time last year that we had it in place. Peer support, finished the residential training, so we're moving forward with investing in the mental health of our paramedics. And just to highlight Paramedic Services Week and some of the celebrations that occurred there went really well. And thank you to our Deputy Warden for being there, and as our Warden would have attended, but was not in town at the time. And sent regrets, and we did even receive letters from our MP John Nader and MPP Master Ray for our staff. So it was a special event of recognizing years of service, and we intend to continue to do that following years. And then the last thing in our report is a series of changes to our ALS PCS, which are patient care standards in Ontario for primary care paramedics who we employ. And there's a series of things that are in this report that we talk about, and the generality of it is that based on best practice medicine, there are some changes that have come down the pipe in terms of like how we defibrillate people. We can do more service and support for people that have tracheotomies and suctioning like out the tracheotomy and those types of things. Changes to the way we deal with nausea, changes to providing medications now for people that have experienced trauma and might be hypotensive, so low blood pressure. We can give them some medicine to help sustain life, and we can put your kneecap back in place now if it flips out. So yeah, it feels a lot better when it's back in place, not when it's going back in place. And then just the other highlight is we've been working with our local fire services through all of your municipalities to just do some orientations with the fire service on some of our equipment and stretchers to make sure that if we're working together on seeing people are helping each other the best they can. So that's my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Mike. Questions or comments from at this time? Councilor Orr?
Just minor, the municipal shared service is actually June 19th, you have the 25th. So I'm just clarifying that for you. But great report. I actually love all the stuff that you're doing, and you can tell that young paramedics want to be here. So I'm impressed with how you're taking people. Thank you.
They're working hard, thank you. They're working hard, yeah. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Deputy Warden?
Through you, Warden Kellum. Again, as I expressed during the award ceremony, for paramedic services. I was both pleased and impressed and by the dedication and level of commitment by the paramedic services. And on behalf of the county, it was my honor to express gratitude from council to paramedic services for the excellent work, their dedication and commitment to the community. It's exceptional, and it was a very good event. Thank you.
Thank you for attending. Anyone else? Seeing none, a resolution, the council receives the paramedic services activity report, municipal shared services MSSC report, and the council approves the paramedic services activity report, municipal shared services MSSC, to be presented at the June 19th, 2025 MSSC meeting. Moved by Councilor Rohrer, second by Deputy Warden Trentowski. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for wording for saying the 19th.
Okay, Council, we have a little bit more here. Does anyone need a 5-minute file break, or do you want to continue on? Okay, let's keep going then. Moving on to Public Works Stewardship Program, living snow fences. So bit of or yeah. Keep going. Good morning, welcome, Hannah.
Good morning, Warden Kellum and Council. Before you is a report on living snow fences. In April 2023, Council directed staff to collaborate with the Agricultural Working Group within the scope of the Stewardship Program to determine the viability of a living snow fence program. Next slide. Living snow fences are rows of trees, shrubs, or standing crop oriented in a strip parallel to the roadway with the primary purpose of reducing snow drifting and visibility concerns during the winter months. There are several other benefits of living snow fences, including lowering operational expenses related to road treatment materials like sand and salt. Other benefits of living snow fences include increased safety for the road user and meeting several goals within our county and local municipal agencies, including addressing winter hazards in our high rut. As you can see in this image, some areas on county roads experience significant drifting during winters like the one we just experienced. This image shows that the drift just north of Fullerton was actually taller than one of our public works trucks a few short months ago. The main consideration of living snow fences is the need to place them far enough from the roadway so the snow can fall from the air before it reaches the roadway. The industry accepted standard setback is 35 meters from the road edge. This requires partnership with roadway adjacent landowners to install living snow fences on privately owned lands. This, of course, is entirely voluntary. The Perth County Stewardship Program has been immensely popular in its first few years. We have experienced phenomenal feedback about the program and have seen several large and small projects come to fruition on farms across the county. You, Council, are aware, as I am, of the significant investment agricultural land requires in recent years and the incredible hard work landowners invest into their crops, properties, and businesses to see success and longevity in their operations. Many landowners see the benefit of living snow fences and windbreaks, but meet the hurdle of the initial investment into the green technology. Incentivizing landowners with grant funds to install living snow fence through the stewardship program could effectively enable landowners to make this investment in their property and see the benefits to their own agricultural land, such as reduced erosion, and see improvement in winter road conditions, enhancing the safety for road users. County staff have identified high priority areas across the county road network which experience the most severe winter conditions, which would receive funding and prioritization through the stewardship program. The opportunity for a new living snow fence stream could be made available as soon as the fall 2025 intake, which opens on July 2nd this year and closes September 15th. And it can certainly be adopted into the program for 2026 and onward. As you know, trees take time to grow fully to reap the installation's benefit. Next slide. This image shows you a property in West Perth on Road 180 that planted a double row of trees and the growth realized in 13 years. This
landowner did not participate in the stewardship program. It's just a really great example. Therefore, it can take some time between when a living snow fence trees are planted and when we can start seeing tangible results on the land. The Agricultural Working Group received a report at the April 15th meeting on the addition of a living snow fence stream into the stewardship program as soon as fall 2025. The working group fully supported the additional stream and hopes the agricultural community responds to the opportunity with enthusiasm. Therefore, staff is recommending council approve the addition of a living snow fence stream into the stewardship program for the fall 2025 intake and retain the stream within the stewardship program moving forward. Thank you for your time and consideration of this matter.
Thank you for the report. Any questions or comments for him? Councilor Hahn?
Yes, I guess my question and comment. Around our area, agricultural land is very pricey. I've seen a lot of farmers take out a lot of trees to increase their productive farmland. And I find it difficult here to imagine that farmers would be willing to give up on 1 kilometer, 5 acres, which if you had to rent that property from the landowner to plant this rows of trees, you would probably add somewhere between $50,000 and $60,000 per kilometer based on 20 years. And I have a concern on that. And if it's great if farmers are willing to volunteer, but I'm not sure you will get much response without giving them some kind of an incentive, which would be to rent the property from them.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Higgins?
Through you, Warden, I see the benefits. I think it's a great program. I agree with Councillor Wilhelm. The other issue I see is you put these trees and then is the farmer going to be able to crop that land that goes from the trees to the edge? Is your equipment going to fit there? Because the farmers are getting bigger and bigger equipment all the time. And I think some of them are going to struggle to make that work. But I do agree, unless we're willing to compensate the farmers, I can't see a lot of them jumping on board.
Thank you. Councilor Duncan?
Thank you, through you, Warden. I think this is a great program, and excuse me, I've been hoping to see something like this for a number of years now. And to Councillor Agatz's comments, I think 115 feet, that's 2 widths of a 50-foot cultivator. 50 feet kind of seems to be standard now for most operators. So that definitely gives them the distance. It's going to take buy-in, there's no doubt about it, but I feel that when we allocate tax dollars to this is a benefit to everybody that lives here. It's not just a benefit to that landowner, it's a benefit to everybody that drives down that road. And I think it's a really good allocation of tax dollars to try and make our roads safer through natural means. I received a number of communications this year, definitely about Highway 86 and drifting snow over the winter. And I think the more of these living snow fences we can put up along our county and municipal roads, it's going to save a lot of winter maintenance and possibly accidents in the future. So I'm fully in support of this program. And if we have to add to it and change it as we go, I think that's what we're going to do. But this is a great start. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I unfortunately didn't think of it until just now. If we put these in, who would kind of maintain them and look after them? Like if a tree dies and stuff like that, would we still, obviously we'd have some kind of an agreement with the farmer, then would we kind of be responsible then for replacing the tree or maybe looking after the area that was treated?
Through you, Warden. How neighboring counties operate these similar projects is that they sign an agreement with the landowner that for a 20-year agreement so that the trees would stay for 20 years. And then the maintenance is kind of, it's different county to county, but typically they sign an agreement with the landowner that if the trees die within so many years that we would replace the dead ones. And then after that, the maintenance would fall on the landowner.
Councilor first.
Just to clarify, but we're not asking that. We're just offering this living snow fence stream into the stewardship program, completely voluntary by the farmers. We're not getting involved with that. We're just offering them the money to buy the trees, and they put them in and they maintain it. We're not doing that, right?
That's correct. So this is just a stream within the stewardship program. It's completely voluntary. The difference between the existing landowner stream and this stream is the amount of grant that we would provide. So this stream would fund the living snow fence at 100% versus the landowner stream currently only funds projects up to 50%. So it's a little bit more of an incentive for landowners to take. They get the infrastructure for free. And they're doing a great public service for our road user safety. But again, it is completely voluntary. We're not forcing anyone to do anything they don't want to do. And just like any tree planting project, each property has its own personality and varies based on creeks and municipal drains and existing woodlots. So each project would be tailored to that specific farm and that specific farmer's equipment.
Councilor Ricketts.
I guess, Councilor Warden, Councilor McDermott spiked another question. So we have a 20-year agreement. The farm changes hands. The next farmer doesn't want to do it. His hands are tied according to the forestry bylaw because he can't even take those trees down. Is that correct? So I'm just wondering what mechanism we're going to put into place if, after the 20 years, if it changes owners, then he doesn't want it. How can he get rid of it, or can he?
Through you, Warden. These types of long-term agreements, 15, 20-year agreements, are very common within all conservation authority tree planting programs and other neighboring county programs. So if the land were to change hands, that would just be a nuance to the property for the allotted time. But this does not really fall within the scope of our existing forest conservation bylaw because of the style of, like, the windbreak typically does not fall under the purview of our bylaw.
Warden Calmus, I notice our tree inspector Marvin Smith is here. Just wondering if he could shed some insight onto this idea, please.
Good morning, Marvin.
Morning. Warden and council members. I guess the question was how the forest conservation bylaw applies to the program that Han is discussing. That's, yeah. What I would try to do is to design any living snow fence program so that it won't in future be included as a woodlot, and it can be done fairly easily, either with the spacing of the trees or with the selection of species or with the size of the area planted. For instance, if it's a long strip along, say, the full length of a farm property, which in this area typically often is 3,300 feet, you could have a gap designed within it that would allow movement of farm equipment, for instance, and would also be a designated point at which that wooded section ends, and then another section starts. Things like that can be done. I think that's the simplest way to deal with it.
Just one more clarification. Are you asking them to have an agreement for this for like 20 years, 10, 20 years? I just simply see we're encouraging them to plant the trees, but I'm not seeing that we're asking for any signed agreements on them staying there.
So currently within our stewardship program, we do insist on having a lifespan or an agreement of 15 years. And that's been in place the entire time the stewardship program has been in existence. It was a recommendation by subject matter experts. And again, it is a requirement of any conservation authority planting and many other forms of grant funds that are available through provincial and federal means. It's a matter of protecting an investment that's being made with grant funds. It's a very common thing.
Okay, again, you have to have the buy-in from the farmers and I would guess I'm still hoping for input from the farming community on this, but I am in support of living snow fences, no doubt, but I still think there needs to be more communication.
Deputy Warden?
Yeah, through you, Warden Kellum. When this topic was discussed at the Ag Working Group in April, we didn't get into the specific details and mechanics of agreements. Like what's being presented here is the general form, the basic outline. We didn't dive into the details, so council has an opportunity, if they wish to proceed with this idea, then council has the opportunity to provide the details that they think are appropriate towards the, I guess, the governance of these projects and how they wish to see them funded, how council wishes to see them, the oversight and the management, both in terms of short-term and long-term, and address the details about, as Councillor Agnew pointed out, about when property changes ownership. How is that agreement addressed? So we leave these details to council to, we just want to present the basic idea. And if council's in agreement with that basic idea, then there's opportunity for further discussion to sort out the details and have something in place that staff can take back to the public for their engagement. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Higgins?
Through you, Warden Kellum. So further, I'm not against this, but leaving these gaps, and all of a sudden we're gonna have a big snowdrift in the middle of the road wherever that gap is, because you're gonna leave a big enough gap to get the equipment through. When we get to the forestry bylaw, I'd just soon get rid of windbreaks altogether, take it out of the forestry bylaw. That would solve the problem totally, I think. Because if you have an agreement with the farmers, then the agreement is to stay there. The caveat is though, if that land changes hands, you know, these farmers, when you're paying 35 or 40,000 an acre, they're not willing to give up that acre. Because if you watch some of them, they cultivate right to the edge of the road because they're trying to get that extra little land that they can get no matter where. So I think that we have to put some kind of parameters in place that work around all these problems. Like, and I don't know how we're going to do that. Like Dean says, for council to come up with those things, but we need to have something in place.
To the point that's being discussed, I think we can certainly delegate to staff the responsibility to bring back some more structural details of the program. I find myself, my eyes drawn to the issue of crop snow fencing and that it has been recommended, and I don't disagree that we don't include it in the stewardship program, but there's a sense that in other counties, and certainly there's been success in other counties, that this is coming through payments and planning through public works. And so I have to ask at this point, are we considering this? And I see our Director of Public Works, Executive Director of Public Works is with us. What kind of thinking is going on in your head at this point, Mr. Levon, with regards to this project and whether you will bring forward on behalf of your department some thoughts on crop-based snow fencing in the near future?
Through the warden, first and foremost, just want to go back a few years where we had a winter modernization
report come to us, which highly recommended the use of living snow fences or snow fences within the county and on county roadways. The benefits are by far measurable and realistic. And I know further to that, there was further discussion and a report by staff on snow fencing. At that time, council delegated that to the agricultural working group to work on. And I've just got to commend that group and Hannah and our staff at the county on working on this. So this is a great start. I'm very pleased with what I see. You know, to Councillor Kasenberg's point with, yeah, that's not part of this discussion as this being part of the stewardship program and or a stream. But we are very seriously looking at that through the Public Works Department. Obviously, crops are a little bit different in that there's crop rotation. Typically, you want to be using a cornfield and leaving about 12 rows of corn to establish a realistic snow fence. So our staff will be looking along our roadways. We've obviously through the work that Hannah and the Agricultural Working Group has done, we've identified a number of areas within the county and on county roads that we would like to see prioritized. If we can do that, more as a trial basis, perhaps even this winter, we are going to look to do that. I guess further to that, we're constantly coming back to council during budget. Our winter maintenance operations always increases, and then we have blips in our winter maintenance, like this past winter, where costs are astronomical. We've already brought you a report for winter maintenance contracted services. There will be reports coming for the supply of salt. These are things that we would like to control and or have some form of control of those cost increases within our operations. We do not have control over Mother Nature. But this is one way that we can aid in the control of Mother Nature and certainly improve the safety of our roadway and potentially decrease operational costs within our winter maintenance budget. So with the crop program, there would have to be some payment to the farmer for leaving that crop in place. Typically, theoretically, you can harvest that crop back in the spring, but obviously it's not going to be a desirable thing. With either of these programs, education, communication is going to be key, and working with our local farmers is going to be further to that. So this is, I think, as Councillor Duncan said, this is a great start. I'm encouraged. I like what I see. We got to start somewhere, and yeah, we're going to have to build on this program as we move forward.
I'm for the living snow fence program, but I'm wondering, just to make so that we started off right, that we don't add to Hannah's plate this fall, that we leave our stewardship program for 2025 as is, and that we consider this in 2026 with a few more additions of maybe the crops, and maybe by then we'll have some farmer input as well. I would like to make a motion.
So you want to defer this?
Defer this till 2026.
Perhaps to suggest improving our approach here, perhaps what we want to do is that we agree in principle, or we want to adopt in principle this action of adding to the stewardship program, but we also direct staff to create more platform around this and move towards implementation in 2026. Perhaps that's the...
Yeah, that you framed it very nicely. It starts in July, I believe, our open stewardship, so I think we give Hannah a bit more time.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment through the board, but that won't stop, but John has just mentioned, I hope, right, we will continue with whatever you're looking at doing, perhaps starting this fall, from Public Works. We don't want to delay that.
No. Two different things.
Yeah.
Through the warden, anything we would do we've already got a budget approved for 2025. If we're looking at something like this, that would maybe add to that, we'll be coming back to you, council, for your approval. So yeah, we aim to look into this further this year. As I say, some of these things, crops are one thing, they're growing right now. The living snow fence is something that takes at minimum 5 years to really establish anything worthwhile. So, my only concern with delaying anything or deferring anything is, we miss another year.
Any comments or questions? Councilor Duncan?
Question through you, Warden, question for Hannah. Do you have the ability at the staff level for the stewardship to go ahead with this now for this fall?
Through you, Warden, we have the financial capacity to add this stream. We have, I think, $44,000-ish for the fall stream to open. And as far as launching the next application intake, it does not add anything additional to our workload to add this stream. It would go out in the same media releases and through the same program channels through our website. It would all be launched at the same time.
Okay, then I don't see any need to defer it myself. Let's hit the ground running and get this rolling.
Any comments or questions? Okay, then I'll read the resolution. See where it goes.
So through the warden, just to kind of clarify where we're at procedurally, then, was Councilor Orr making a motion on to begin with? And I think we should separate this one out. So I think we should receive the report first, move and second that, see where that goes, and then carry on. And I know you said that you wanted to make a motion first, so where do we sit on that?
I guess I'm just wanting to get it right the first time, so I want to give Hannah a bit more time. There's, just in this last 10 minutes, we got a bunch of questions about it. So I think the 44,000 will be spent in the stewardship program for trees. So if you want to accept the report, then I will withdraw my motion.
What's wrong?
I guess my only concern would be, will the agreement be brought forward for council that you would be prepared to put out to the farmers or landowners for 20 years? I'd like to see that agreement come before council before it's implemented.
We still have questions.
Okay. So receive the report. Receive the report first, yes, please. The council receives we're done comments, sorry. Okay, so that council receives the stewardship program, living snow fence stream report, and that council approves the addition of a living snow fence stream in Perth County stewardship program.
We'll just do this first and then have a conversation after.
Okay, so we're doing this first. So the council receives the stewardship program, living snow fence stream report. Move by for information. Councilor McDermott, second by Councilor Wilhelm. All those in favor? That's carried. What direction would you like? Are we going to defer it or go ahead, Councilor Wilhelm?
I guess I don't really need to see it deferred, but I do need to see an agreement before it moves forward. So if that's deferring it, yes. But before there's anything dealt with the landowner for 20 years, I think it's imperative that council sees the agreement.
John, accept it.
Just gonna get the motion. If I may.
Go ahead.
So through the warden, then, just trying to understand where council may be at, if I could recommend that council approves the addition of a living snow fence stream in the Perth County Stewardship Program, and that council directs staff to bring a report to council highlighting the recommended criteria for the living snow fence stream. That way, it would go ahead in principle, as previously indicated, that it would be part of the 2025 stewardship program, but it would then give an opportunity to discuss some of the criteria and maybe some of how that program would look to go to Councilor Wilhelm's point.
Just to clarify, we only have one meeting in between that, right? Because it starts in July, the open stewardship. A lot of pressure.
Through you, Warden, the application intake starts July 2nd, but we don't approve applications through the working group until a meeting later on. So we accept all the applications and then we bring them to the working group for consideration, to which they are determined whether they should be supported or not supported. And then those applications with which we want to support always come to council for final approval. So the questions that councilors have raised today would not need to be rushed and answered before the July 2nd application intake. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
I'm so
Still
sorry.
confused? No, that's all right. That's what we're here for.
It's just that, I mean, will people apply then? In the July 2nd report, if they don't know all the facts of what they're tying their land into? I guess I'm going back to, I don't wanna.
If you're working, through you, Warden Kelm, in support of Councillor Orr's comment and Councillor Wilhelm's comment, I think it's imperative we get the details sorted out. First, staff go prepare the details, submit a report back to council. Council can review it, analyze that report, make amendments as required before we finalize the direction that on this part of the program, so that we have it set in place, agreed. If we need further consultation with stakeholders outside of county council and staff, then that's the opportunity to do it. Bring that back into the report as well, and then let council give its final blessing before we give it to staff and before we ask the public to make applications for a program that we haven't got fleshed out yet. But it would be an exercise in frustration for all parties if we did otherwise. That would be my
Agreed.
recommendation.
Thank you.
So is that the resolution? We did it again?
Yeah, I can read it again.
So we all understand?
So through the warden, what was previously mentioned, that council approves the addition of living snow fence stream in the Perth County Stewardship Program. That council directs staff to bring a report to council highlighting the recommended criteria for the living snow fence stream. Having a brief kind of side conversation is that report could conceivably come back to council for the July 3rd. So the rest of the program can still continue. If that report comes to the July 3rd, add in whatever criteria, and maybe the piece about the living snow fence application starts just a little bit delayed. If that pleases.
On board?
Yeah, through you, Warden Kelm, yeah, I would agree with that approach. That just, we get it set and ready before we release it to the public. If that means a later release date, so be it. Just as to Councillor Orr's point, we want to get it right the first time. So whatever steps are necessary in that regard, I would support that approach. Thank you.
So you make that motion?
Yes.
Second by Councillor Orr. Last comments? All those in favor? That is carried. What it is carried. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, moving on to tender results. John, I think you're taking this one?
Thank you, Warden Kelm, Morning Council.
Maybe just before I begin, before I forget, next council meeting on June 19th will be held at the county courthouse, both council chambers, POA court. That meeting still starts at 9 a.m. We will, following that council meeting, and I promise it'll be brief, that we will be hosting a grand opening for the one Huron, or the
connecting link and renovation projects. So that will commence, that opening ceremony will commence at 10:30 a.m. There will be a short ceremony and a tour of the facility.
Looking forward to it.
Just out of curiosity, what door do you want us to use?
Through the warden, you'll be accessing, you'll park in our parking lot. We're making accommodations so that you can come in through the new main doors.
Thank you.
And make sure you're dressed sharp. We're all cutting the ribbon. Not just one of us.
Sir,
Go ahead.
Just through the warden, just for the public's understanding as well, just if they were going to be attending council that day as well, that they should be coming through the 24th St. Andrew side. So council come through one here on, but if the public is attending that council meeting for whatever reason, that they should be coming through the 24th St. Andrew side.
Good. Continue.
Through the warden, on to some reports. First one for you is tender results for Perth Line 44. So this report does summarize the tender results for a road construction project on Perth Line 44, which includes the Colden Place recycling and hot mix paving of Perth Line 44 from Road 160 west to Perth Road 180 at the Huron boundary. This project will complete the rehabilitation of the entire length of Perth Line 44, which began 2 years ago at the east end of the roadway. Also included in this tender is the construction of a curb and gutter system in Broadhagen to improve the control of surface waters within the road allowance. It also includes improvements to the existing sidewalks in Broadhagen, which are the responsibility of West Perth, and also the surface paving of Perth, of Line 4 for the municipality of Perth South. 6 submissions were received with the low bid from Brantco Construction at $2,683,898 plus HST. As it pertains to the county's portion of this tender submission, that total is $2,053,948 plus HST. This amount is below the capital budget estimate of $2.26 million. As staff from Perth South and West Perth have received council support for their portion of the tender, and county staff are recommending that our council award the contract to Brantco Construction. There is currently no construction scheduled as yet, but the tender did specify a completion date of October 31st of this year, and the contractor is to maintain single lane traffic throughout all phases of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. Questions or comments for John at this time? Councillor Duncan?
John, how many kilometers of asphalt is that from 180 to, it says west of 160?
It's about 10K. Through the warden, it's about 10K.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, the council receives the tender results. Perth Line 44 report. The council will award tender 2025-031-02 Brantco Construction. And the council authorize the warden and the clerk to execute the agreement between the corporation of the county of Perth and Brantco Construction. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, second by Councillor Orr. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Next, 8.5.3, John.
Thank you, Warden McCallum. This report is seeking pre-budget approval for a triaxle plow truck forecasted in the 2026 budget and authorization to procure that truck through a single source purchase. Assets such as these typically take well over a year to build, and as such, staff have been requesting approval to procure well ahead of the budgeted replacement year. The truck being replaced is a 2014 Freightliner, which has been removed from frontline service and is utilized as a spare. And just to comment, our spares are well used and certainly well used this past winter. In our discussions with vendors and suppliers,
staff have been made aware of a cab and chassis that is currently available and is in the yard of our box and plow equipment supplier, Viking Sieves. Cab and chassis is a 2025 Western Star and meets the exact specifications that the county requires. We currently have one Western Star in our fleet, and our staff and mechanics can attest to its superior components, ergonomics, and certainly outperforms other plow units in our fleet. The quote provided from Viking Sieves for the 2025 Western Star, complete with all specified winter maintenance equipment, is $467,816. Just to compare that to our last purchase in 2024 for a triaxle was done through a tender process and cost $467,320 plus HST. And that year was a Freightliner cab chassis. Staff are recommending a single source procurement with Viking Sieves, as the cabin chassis is currently in stock, meets our specifications, it's not subject to tariffs, and is virtually the same price as our 2024 purchase. The county purchasing policy allows for single source and/or direct negotiation method of procurement. The county and our local municipalities have a long-standing relationship with Viking, and they are an industry leader in the manufacturing of truck equipment for vehicle or winter maintenance operations. Answer any questions?
Thank you, John. Questions or comments? Councilor Wilhelm.
I've always liked Western Star. I think they're a quality product, and I'd certainly make a motion to go ahead and make this.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, the council receives a pre-budget approval triaxle snowplow replacement 2026 report. And the council authorized pre-budget approval for the procurement of a triaxle cab and chassis plow truck for the 2026 assessed replacement. And the council authorized the single source purchase of triaxle cab and chassis plow truck complete with winter maintenance equipment as specified from Viking Sieves Limited for the quoted price of $467,816, excluding HST. Moved by Councilor Wilhelm, second by Councilor Duncan. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 8.5.4, Martin Street road transfer.
Thank you, Gordon Kellum. This one I'm going to try and be brief with. Martin Street, it's a short little section of road in West Perth in the town of Russelldale. It is access to it is from Perth Line 20, and it also has access from Highway 23. As you all may well be aware, there is a roundabout project scheduled at the Russelldale intersection. And as such, access from Martin Street to Highway 23 will be no longer because of the roundabout. Martin Street will be a cul-de-sac with its only access off of Perth Line 20. In doing all this, it was discovered that the county actually owns Martin Street. And West Perth, it's in their asset inventory. It's always been, they've always maintained it and assumed it was there in their ownership. However, a title search proved otherwise. So in order to close Martin Street, we have to do a few things to get that bylaw in place, which will be coming from West Perth. So the report before you today is just authorizing staff to facilitate the transfer of Martin Street to the municipality of West Perth and authorizing the CAO to execute all the documents in connection with that transfer. So West Perth will now have ownership of that on title. It will be a cul-de-sac still maintained by West Perth, and they will be subsequently providing a bylaw to the province acknowledging the closure of a section that will not allow access onto 23. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for the report, John. Questions or comments for him at this time? Seeing none. Resolution that council receives the Martin Street and transfer of road ownership report. And the council declare such lands being legally described as road allowance between lots 34 and 35, concession North Thames Road, Fullerton, part lot 34, concession North Thames, Fullerton Road being part 1, 44R and 43, Martin Street between Road 164 and line 20. Municipality of West Perth, County of Perth being PIN 53219-0004 surplus to its needs. And that council authorized staff to facilitate the transfer of Martin Street, Russellville, such lands being legally described as road allowance between lots 34 and 35, concession North Thames Road, Fullerton, part lot 34, concession North Thames Road, Fullerton, being part 1, 44R-1043, Martin Street between Road 164 and line 20, Municipality of West Perth, County of Perth, being PIN 53219-0004, the Corporation of Municipality of West Perth. The council authorized the CAO to execute all documents in connection with the transfer of Martin Street. Moved by Councillor Mackenzie, second by Councillor Angus. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 11 o'clock, what do you want, like the file break? Okay, let's come back at 11:08. Okay, moving on to our agenda. Item 9, council reports. 9.1, we have the forestry conservation bylaw review update, and Deputy Warden Trudowski is going to present this.
Thanks, Warden Cullen. Council colleagues, staff, members of the public. As chair of the Agricultural Working Group, I bring before you for your review and consideration the Forest Conservation Bylaw Review Update of 2024-2025. There is quite a list of recommended actions. I won't go through those right now. I will dive into the executive summary, and I'll circle back to the recommended actions towards the end. So, yeah, there's on the screen, we've outlined a timeline. Council direction was given in March 2024 to review the existing forest conservation bylaw. And that resolution reads as follows: that council refer the county's forestry bylaw to the Agricultural Working Group to undertake a detailed review and comparison with other county forestry bylaws, including Oxford, Huron, and Wellington, Chatham-Kent, and report back to council with recommendations. And you will see in the report and the attachments that task has been completed. To date, May 2024, staff completed research and outreach to comparative municipalities, including Oxford County, regarding an appeal exemption process. July 24, the Agricultural Working Group received a report detailing municipal comparisons, analysis, and jurisdictional review as per council's direction of March 2024. At that meeting, that information was received for information by the Ag Working Group. There were no decisions made at that time. In December of 2024, the Agricultural Working Group received a report with proposed updates for forest conservation bylaw based on comparisons and feedback provided previously to staff. It's worth noting that at that December meeting, the members changed because of following the county council elections. Warden Eggets was no longer on the working group. Councillor Matt Duncan was added. Also, we had changed John Van Dyke was now representing Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario in place of Tom Diamond. So at that December meeting, we went through that information together. And following that meeting, there was another meeting in April of 2025 where we circled back because of the change in membership and because of the change in because of the volume of the information that we had received for consideration. The Ag Working Group circled back to finalize suggested recommendations for County Council. And prior to that April meeting, additional information was obtained from Oxford County staff, in particular questions that we had regarding the appeals process mechanism, as they have that drafted it out in a bylaw of their own. So having secured all that information and having had the April meeting with the recommendations, the Ag Working Group submits the report to Council with proposed bylaw updates, including clarified definitions of our existing forest conservation bylaw, the addition of a windbreak definition, consolidated amendments previously passed by Council, and a proposed committee exemption process. So that brings us to today, where Council is being asked to review the proposed updates to the forest conservation bylaw, and including a proposed communications campaign to be led by the Agricultural Working Group. So that gives us the background history. So diving into municipal comparison, analysis, and jurisdictional review. As I mentioned in July, the Ag Working Group had received the Ag Working Group meeting. The report titled Forest Conservation Bylaw Review was presented. The report offered the working group a comprehensive review or overview of the current state of forests in Perth County, detailing existing forest conditions, identifying key threats, highlighting various stressors impacting local forests. It also included a thorough comparison of forest conservation bylaws from surrounding areas to help the group understand regional approaches and best practices taken in those municipalities. Attached to the July 16th report, Appendix A attached showcases the comparative analysis of other municipal forestry bylaws. Although the request from Council was to review Oxford, Huron, Wellington, and Chatham-Kent, staff also provided Middlesex, Brew, and Grey counties as comparators. And as I mentioned, on December 10th, 2024, the Ag Working Group held a meeting with the primary focus on the forestry bylaw details itself. One of the main areas of focus was consolidating previous amendments to a more cohesive and streamlined bylaw. Additionally, staff introduced a proposed avenue for appeal, suggesting a formalized exemption appeal process that would allow landowners to request exemptions under specific circumstances. This exemption appeal process was modeled from one of the comparator municipalities, that being Oxford County. And it was proposed that a committee of council, such as Land Division Committee, handled forestry bylaw exemption requests as required. The report also made several recommendations to clarify terms that had been ambiguous or lacked precise definitions. So on the aspect of the forestry bylaw exemption and appeal process, the inclusion of an appeal process was requested, and staff reviewed comparable municipalities to formulate a process. Oxford County has a two-tier process that included an application for a bylaw exemption, or either an administration review and or to a committee for review, and then an appeal of that decision could be completed. To reduce administration and potential delay, staff recommended an expedited route straight to forestry bylaw exemption appeal committee decision. If a decision is made by the forest conservation bylaw officer that an individual or an organization does not agree with, an individual or organization can then request a forestry bylaw exemption appeal, i.e. a committee decision, whose decision shall be final. In consideration of a request for an exemption, the committee may grant the exemption request, grant the exemption request with modifications, or refuse the exemption request altogether. The context is that the forestry bylaw exemption appeal committee decision is for applicants who have completed a notice of intent and are not satisfied with the expert opinion of the officer. No bypass of the officer is permitted in the forestry bylaw exemption or appeal process to maintain consistency for all individuals or organizations who complete the exemption process. All decisions of the committee are final. Any exemption request to the committee would need to be completed on the prescribed application form, Schedule C of the bylaw, and include the mandatory $200 fee. The request would then be referred to the Land Division Committee, which is a committee of council that is already established and familiar with similar matters. While at the Land Division Committee, it will operate like a quasi-judicial hearing where the applicant can provide their case for an exemption and can provide an expert for their input. Additionally, staff and the forestry inspector will be able to provide their positions and expertise on the request. The public will be notified and comments can be provided ahead of the meeting or heard during the proceedings. And there's a chart there that outlines the, I guess, the 9-step process that is being proposed here for the exemption appeal process that would go through the Land Division Committee for decision. So then, for the attention of the working group, then shifted onto the definitions that are contained within our current forestry bylaw. We've outlined proposed following definitions to be revised as below. We have a definition for committee, definition for Christmas tree plantation, cultivated fruit or nut orchard, a definition for windbreak, definition for woodlots or woodlot, singular. And at this time, I would call upon Marvin Smith, the county forestry inspector, to provide some insight into these definitions, and also a common question that arose during discussions at Ag Working Group is why are our sizes, the acreages for woodlots and windbreaks and so forth, why is that different than what's listed in the provincial Forestry Act? And why is it appear to be running contrary to the provincial planning statement, and how the municipal act factors into this as well. So I'll call upon Marvin to provide some additional information and insight on those technical parts. Marvin, if you could, please.
Starting with the size of woodlands defined in the municipal act, there is not a conflict between the two. The municipal act actually gives opportunity for very, very restrictive definition of what can be protected as far as trees go and what can't. What it does is it distinguishes between which level of government has the authority to do the restriction. And it sets out that the minimum size for upper tier municipality, the size limit is 1 hectare. But the size limit for lower tier municipalities is not given as a minimum. In other words, lower tier municipalities could regulate individual trees. So the way that the Forest Conservation Bylaw in Perth County operates is, for decades, the minimum size has been set at 1/2 acre or 0.2 hectares. When the municipal act became the provincial legislation that oversaw forest conservation bylaws in 2001, that's when the change occurred for the County of Perth to continue with its same minimum size limit of 1/2 acre or 0.2 hectares. The county needed to get the delegation of authority from the lower tier municipalities to allow it to do that. And that process is set out in the Municipal Act. So the bottom line is there's no conflict with how the Municipal Act does it. It's just a change in what the process is. Should we stop there for any questions? I don't know.
Well, I was going to proceed with the rest of the presentation, and then once I conclude the presentation, Marvin, then I would open the floor to questions. Sure. My colleagues. So there's again, we can entertain questions and comments on that definition section, and also on Marvin's explanation of why the numbers are different. So I'll carry on with the rest of the report here. It was also felt that education and an information campaign was necessary. Collectively, what the Ag Working Group arrived at was the following. Education and information sharing is necessary for the success of Perth County's forestry program. The working group discussed various approaches to educate council staff and the public at the April 15th, 2025 Agriculture Working Group meeting. The following resolution was passed: that the Agriculture Working Group recommends to council an education and informational campaign developed by the Ag Working Group for the public regarding the Perth County Forest Conservation Bylaw, including a roadshow presentation to the lower tier council and staff, and presentation to the local farming community by staff, additional updates to the Perth County website, an informational social media campaign, inclusion of relevant information into the stewardship program application process. So upon council's direction, staff will attend a future agricultural working group meeting to present a proposed communication strategy. So the proposed bylaw revisions and associated recommendations reflect the collaborative efforts of the agricultural working group, the county's forestry inspector, county staff, and the best practices from comparative municipalities. Together, these changes aim to clarify regulations for landowners, support sustainable forest practices, and strengthen Perth County's commitment to environmental stewardship. So I would be remiss if I, as chair, did not express my thanks and gratitude to Marvin, to Hannah, to the rest of our staff, and the member municipalities that offered their information, and particularly to Oxford County to respond to our questions regarding their appeals process. That's the report that I can deliver on behalf of the Ag Working Group in a nutshell. I guess some comments. Again, this was undertaken under the direction of council. Council has the ability to take this in different directions. I'll read the recommendations that are shown here. Recommended action, and there's different parts here. Recommended action that council receives the Forest Conservation Bylaw Review Update 2024-2025 report, and that council adopt Forest Conservation Bylaw number 4033-2025, and repeal bylaw number 3836-2021, bylaw number 3812-2022, and bylaw 3951-2023, and that council amend Schedule A bylaw 4004-2025, fees and payments to include a $200 application fee for forestry bylaw exemption appeal, committee decision, and that council delegate forestry bylaw exemption appeal committee decision to the Land Division Committee, and that council directs that the forest conservation bylaw be reviewed by the Agriculture Working Group in the next term of council, and that council directs staff to work with the Perth County Agriculture Working Group to develop an educational information campaign on the following: presentation to lower tier council and staff, presentation to the local farming community by staff, additional updates to the Perth County website, and an informational social media campaign, inclusion of relevant information into the stewardship program application process. I just wanted to take the time to read those recommendations because all those recommendations originated from our April 15th meeting of the Ag Working Group. In closing, that's, as a minimum, that is what the Ag Working Group agreed upon in its deliberations. Council has several options. We can defer any action today, or we can make decisions on some parts or all the parts. It's whatever, it's up to council. It's council's decision how they wish to proceed. Do nothing, endorse in full, amend to add or delete, or if perhaps reject it its entirety. It's council's decision what to do here. And as I mentioned earlier, the Ag Working Group is not an independent body. We work under the direction of council, and I can report that the Ag Working Group has worked diligently to respond to council's direction. And I guess at this time, I will turn the floor over to Warden Kellum so that council colleagues may ask questions or make comments. And both Marvin and Hannah are here to assist in that. Thank you.
Thank you for your thorough report, Dr. Warden. Thank you for your comments, Marvin. We'll open up the floor, so we'll start with Councilor Smith.
Yeah, through you, the warden. Yeah, no, excellent. I'm totally in favor of all the changes that have happened. Again, as Chair Kurkowski mentioned, great work by everyone. Obviously getting the word out, the roadshow, presentations to the farming community, all those that were listed. Is that going to be enough? And just a question, I'm not sure whether we do need to have a public meeting on this to get the public thoughts. And maybe that's thought of, maybe that's coming later. Just curious on that part.
Yeah, through you, Warden Kellum, I had omitted that part. To Councillor Smith's question, it was discussed. But the working group didn't come to any conclusions, mainly because the working group thought it was appropriate to take it this far. And if council wanted to entertain an open house, that would be council's prerogative to do so. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of things to think about, and we just felt it was appropriate to kind of just stop there, pursuit of following council's direction. Council can read this, reflect on it, and council make the decision if they want to proceed with the public open house, similar to what we did with the official plan, or different format, but it's council's decision. Thank you.
Thanks for the question and response. We have now Councillor Higgins.
Through Warden Kellum, further to Councillor Smith, I do believe that we need a public meeting. We told the public at the official plan meetings that we would look into the forestry bylaw some more. I know there were some comments that came out at the official plan meeting, so I think that it should be taken to the public and they should be given an opportunity to bring the items forward that are needed. I have a few other things. I don't know if you want me to do it now. Just further to that, we need to be transparent to the public, and to be transparent, they need to be able to comment. Marvin did answer my question about why we're over and above what the province wants. He indicated that that was the lower tiers. I think maybe that needs to go back to the lower tiers now and see if that's still the will of everybody. I find it a little confusing, and so do the ratepayers. I've had a few phone calls on this of why we are over and above the province. He had a great explanation, but maybe the lower tiers want to continue that, maybe they don't. But I think that they should have that opportunity to say so if where they want to be. The other thing I have trouble with in this bylaw, and it was there before, is that we as a county can go in and cut trees wherever we feel like it. And yet the public, we're telling them they can't. And I hate to say this, we're almost like hypocrites because we're saying one thing and we're doing something else. And we have a place in Perth East that's going on right now. This gentleman wants to build a shop. He's in an agriculture zone. There's trees there. He's told he can't cut the trees. He's done study after study, a peer review. If that was us, we could have went in, put the trees down, and bam, our shop would have been there by now. So I think we need to look at that a little closer. If we're going to have subdivisions, we in Perth East, we try to encourage that they leave those trees there and build around them. And we have one on the outskirts of Milverton right now that we've asked that the trees stay there and they're building around them. So I think that's something else that we need to look at as well. You know, the Ag Group has done a great job. They did what we've asked, but I think there's still some tweaks here that we need to do before certainly not ready to pass it today.
Thank you. Councillor Wilhelm?
Yes, I congratulate everyone involved in a very extensive report. I would like to see us receive this and basically take one portion of it, and that's take it on a roadshow and present it to all the lower tiers as a draft and get their input before this is passed by county council.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Orr?
I would agree. I think we need to have some public engagement. It came out of the official plan reviews. And I think we have to give, especially the farming community, the opportunity to have some input in that. This is their land and we need to work with them. We really need to engage them. And if we're gonna go in there and tell them what they can and cannot do, that won't go over. They're not gonna plant trees. We want trees planted, we gotta work with them.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Well, I think what we need to do is split it out. So just receive the report for information and take the next step. Okay, so resolution that council receives a forest conservation bylaw review update 2024-2025 report for information. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Duncan. All those in favor? And that is carried. Now the next step. That is some direction. Councillor McDermott?
I would move that staff set up meetings with 4 lower tiers and possibly with the public. And when those are all done, then come back and then we'll have a look at it.
So lower tiers and possibly, or a public meeting?
A public meeting and to go to the 4.
Lower tiers for sure, but you said possibly, but you want a public meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it would be good then too, if the lower tiers understand what they can and cannot do, like that they can change it, if they can do whatever, or at least provide input to it anyway.
Okay. So Councillor McDermott has made a motion. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rohrer?
Seconded.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Can you read that?
Yeah, so through the warrant, just for clarification then, just got piecing together that council refers the forest conservation bylaw review update to staff to facilitate a public meeting on the proposed bylaw changes. And then council directs staff to consult with the lower tier municipalities on the forestry conservation bylaw and size requirements for lots and lands. Taking a little bit of what Councillor Eggers was saying and with the direction from Councillor McDermott.
You got that? Councillor Duncan?
Through you, Warden. I'd like to see that most of the lower tiers, if we're gonna hold a public meeting or an open house, I'd like to see if the lower tiers get to see it before we go to the public to ask for their input.
so that everybody's on the same page and knows what we're talking about, there's no confusion.
I like that.
Resolution slightly, on a point of order, I'd suggest you modify the resolution slightly to imply that sequence.
I think we need to reread it. We have it there. So moved by Councillor McDermott and seconded by Councillor Orr. Any other? Deputy Warden?
Through your Warden, Kellen, I would also like to add that notification when it comes time to hold the public meeting, that notification be given to three general farm organizations, OFA, NFU, and Christian farmers, plus the active commodity groups within Perth County. And the OFA, Perth County OFA will have that contact list as per their annual meeting that they hold with the MP and MP for Perth Wallington.
Thank you, Ms. Mover and seconder, okay with that?
Oh, yeah. I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify while Marvin's here, so going back to the lower tiers, what if three of us agree on changing ours and one doesn't? How does that work? Do we all have to agree?
I think for the county to use delegated authority from the lower tiers, it has to be from all lower tier municipalities. That's set out in the Municipal Act. We can check that, but that's as I recall it. So if one of the lower tier municipalities didn't want to do it that way, I don't think the county can proceed with something that isn't set out for the upper tier municipalities' jurisdiction. That's my take on it, but it's set out in the Municipal Act for sure.
So Perth South could not remove itself from the forestry bylaw from the county. I'm just clarifying.
Okay. I was thinking you were talking about the area. No. If the County of Perth can pass under the Municipal Act a forest conservation bylaw that applies to the whole county, it would have to be limited to 1 hectare or larger in size for woodland definitions. I don't think, and maybe Tyler knows better on this, but I don't think Perth South can restrict itself from the forest conservation bylaw entirely.
Yeah, so through the warden, I would have to look into it with a little bit more depth, but if a lower tier municipality were to remove itself or rescind delegated authority to the county, then there's still obligations, is my understanding, through the municipal act, that they would have to have a forestry conservation bylaw or would have the ability to, they would run their own program at that point. But that would, I think, need a little bit more further investigation on that, just for clarification here.
The lower tier municipalities can check their delegating bylaw. I think the only thing they're delegating is the size. They're not delegating to the county that you can operate a forest conservation bylaw within our designation. That's not what it's about.
Answer your question? Vaguely?
Vaguely. I think I need a little more homework on that one.
That's very good.
They can make recommendations though, can we not, the lower tiers of something we want in or something we want taken out? Is that not the idea of going to the lower tiers, that there's going to be more recommendations come forward? Is that the idea of going to the lower tiers?
Well, going to the lower tiers, as I understand it, is part of the educational aspect. And there are many things in the bylaw that can't be touched because they're set out in the Municipal Act. One is the one that you had mentioned earlier about the authority of of municipal governments to do certain things that private landowners can't. That's set out in the Municipal Act. Can't take that out.
Okay.
There's a whole string of things there. So the wording in the forest conservation bylaw was not dependent upon a group of people at some time in the past set up by the county of Perth to come up with. There's a lot of it that's word for word what's in the Municipal Act. And so there are limits there as to what can be changed. Certainly, I think the county in going to the lower tier municipalities is quite open to any feedback. I think part of it was an educational aspect as to why certain things are set out the way they are, such as the question you just asked. And obviously, there's a need for that kind of education.
Well, yeah, I never knew that till you said it today. You're just saying it now. But is there a way that there's things in the bylaw that have to be there? Is there some way to highlight that so we know that those things are from the Municipal Act? And so everybody knows that that can't be changed? How hard is that to do before we see it? Because others might ask that same question that I've asked, right?
Would that not be through education?
I know, but sometimes if you see it, that we get it and it's already highlighted and said, this is in the Municipal Act. These things are already there. You can't change them. So then council's not gonna come with a whole list of things they want to change, realizing they can't change it. That's in the Municipal Act. I guess that's what I'm trying to, and that's one of the things that maybe should be highlighted and then we know. And it could be explained further when they come to the meeting.
Yeah, if they just highlight that with yellow, and at the beginning of it, just say that anything highlighted in yellow is, from the Municipal Act or something like that, that makes it really easy to read and you can go through everything really quick. So just a thought for you.
For sure. Absolutely. Any comments? I'm looking over to my right.
I know, I just going back to the windbreaks that we talked about this morning, like when would we have the opportunity to take windbreaks out completely?
Well, let's use an example here, I guess. The definition of woodland is another one of those things that's defined in legislation. It isn't the Municipal Act, but it's the Forestry Act. That definition can't be changed. So if you have a woodland or a windbreak that falls within that definition, it can't be changed. There are other things that can be changed, but that definition can't be. It just seems to me that this is part of the educational aspect. For instance, why would we want to see windbreaks planted but not be kept for a long period of time? Why would we not want to have some sort of regulation? It takes a long time for trees to grow, and there are 2 or 3 things that come into play, and this is part of the educational process, I think, at the lower tier council level and wherever. But first of all, that it's clear that Perth County doesn't have enough forest cover. And secondly, that trees take a long time to grow. And we need to do something to foster that and to make it as easy as possible to remove trees at any whim seems to be contrary to that. So there has to be some definite thought that goes into that for sure. The windbreak definition is in line with the way that the forest conservation bylaw works, in that it's designating things by area. So something over 1/2 acre, 0.2 hectares is covered under the woodlot protection in the bylaw. Something smaller than that isn't. And there are ways, if people are wanting to start a windbreak, but not have it covered by the forest conservation bylaw, design is the key. And that's something that can be included in the education, but you can pick spacing, you can pick species that you use, all sorts of design factors that won't fall into what's there for a woodlot. But honestly, what I see, it isn't people who are planting woodlots that want to see them removed. It's the next landowner or the next landowner. And it isn't a restriction on the people planting woodlots. It's a restriction on field enlargement at some time in the future with a different landowner. That's when it happens.
Thank you for your response. Anyone else? Councillor Higgins?
I guess my other concern though is people planting, say, walnut trees. So my great grandfather planted walnut trees and now I get to harvest them. I'm told I can't. And I think that came out in the official plan meeting several times. There's some people that have them. And they're concerned now whether they can harvest their crop. So they planted it as a crop instead of planting, say, wheat or corn or whatever. And I'm not sure where that's all addressed in our forestry bylaw, but that's the gist I got, that they cannot harvest those trees now. So how can we make that possible that they can? Because I think that was the idea for people to plant certain kinds of trees, that they want to harvest them.
That's not true. So there has to be some education in relation to that too.
So my understanding was you can cut them and leave the stump there? Is that right? Didn't we talk about that one time? Jeremy? Just that we have clarification that those people can harvest those trees if they wish to now.
The harvesting can go on the same as harvesting of any other woodlot or woodland situation. And that's set out in the bylaw fairly clearly in section 2 and 3.
Okay, well, it's there.
But those are the sorts of educational things that obviously are needed. There's a lot of rumor and what I call rural myths that go on about forest conservation bylaw and such like.
So how about John had a good idea here. If we have any questions to forward them on, that we could include them in the education process. Forward them on. Okay.
Yes.
So through the one we have on the floor, that the motion has been moved and seconded. I don't know if it's fair repeating at this point.
I just want to make sure there's a public consultation at the end.
Okay. So through the one, the council prefers the forest conservation bylaw review update to staff to facilitate a public open house on proposed changes. And then council directs staff to consult with the lower tier municipalities on the forestry conservation bylaw before proceeding to public open house. Just for clarification on doing that.
Mover and seconder, okay with that still? Okay. I'm gonna call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Margaret. Thanks, Ann. On our agenda, we do have some bylaws on the table for consideration. Resolution that bylaw number 4035-2025 be read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed this 5th day of June 2025. Moved by Councillor Smith, second by Councillor Orr. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, does anyone wish to give notice motion at this time? Seeing none, other business? Any council member have any announcements they'd like to share that would benefit the Perth County? Seeing none, so we do have a closed session. Resolution by Perth County, council move into closed session at approximately 11:56 a.m. in accordance with section 239 of Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended. Consider a matter pertaining to litigation negotiations with the CAO. Moved by Councilor McDermott, second by Councilor Wilhelm. All those in favor? That is carried. We're back in normal council. Moving our agenda, we have the confirmatory bylaw. That bylaw number 40362025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, the corporation of the County of Perth at its regular meeting held June 5th, 2025. It's read a first, second, and third time and finally passed June 5th, 2025. Moved by Councilor Orr, second by Councilor McKenzie. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, the council meeting be adjourned at approximately 12:04 p.m. Moved by Councilor Wilhelm, second by Councilor McDermott. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you, everyone.